Hey, so this is a video on Lesson 43, the composition of functions. We started off today with an analogy saying that a function was like a machine. It's a machine that takes in an input x and it outputs y. So the x goes into the function, and that function we're calling f, and what comes out is f of x. So it's x having been processed by the f function. That's how you can think of f of x. So a composition of functions is just two function machines back to back. So if I'm looking at these two function machines here, we're talking about the example of f of g of x. So we have two functions here, g and f. The closest one is going to go first. So g would be first, and f would be second. So the x gets put into the g machine, the g function over here, and what comes out is g of x. So x has been processed by g. So this is just a machine that takes in a number and puts out another number. So maybe it's a function that just multiplies things by 3, or maybe it squares them. We don't know. It's a generalized case, so it could do anything. Now that we have g of x, whatever came out of the g function, we're going to put that into the f function. That's the input for the second function. Once g of x is processed by the f function, what comes out is f of g of x. Same thing with the other notation. This is pronounced the same exact way. G is still first, f is still second, and it's still pronounced f of g of x. Now the x goes into the first function, g, and what comes out but g of x. G of x is our new number. It's processed by the g function. That's our input to our next function. And what comes out is f of g of x. So let me pick one example in the back that we can go through. For this entire lesson, we're pulling from this bank of questions on the front. So we're using these 6 functions, f, g, h, j, k, and m. So let's pick one in the back that looks like it might be tricky. Let's pick our first homework question, number 21. I have f of g of negative 3i. Both of the notations are equivalent, so it doesn't matter which one that I use. I'm going to use the g function first. G of x is equal to 3x plus 2i. And what I need to find is I need to find g of negative 3i, because that's like my first little chunk on the inside. What have I done except for take x and replace it with negative 3i? So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Replace x with negative 3i. Everything else stays the same. The 3 is the same, the plus 2i is the same. Only thing that changes is x becomes that in parentheses. Now this is equal to negative 9i plus 2i, which is equal to negative 7i. Now that's the result of the first half. I've handled the g function. Now it's time to handle the f. So f of x is equal to 3x. And what am I going to plug in? the output from the last function. So what I need is I need to find out what f of negative 7i is. So replace the x with a negative 7i, do a little substitution. So that became that. And I get negative 21i. Process with g, that input becomes an output, and then that's put into f, and process that, and we get our final answer. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to contact me, but that is the gist of compositions of functions.